Welcome to the deep dive. You've brought us some really fascinating material today. It's all about artificial intelligence.
Yeah, specifically how it's impacting, well, pretty much everything around us.
Exactly. We're going to zero in on how AI is, fundamentally changing work, leadership, the way decisions get made.
Mm.
And this deep dive, it's really about digging into the sources you provided, pulling out those key insights, giving you a shortcut, basically, getting up to speed on this. It moves so fast.
It really does. And AI, it's definitely more than just code these days. It's like a force reshaping jobs, demanding new thinking from leaders.
And just changing how we decide things, right? At every level.
Absolutely. These sources, they offer a great perspective on that whole transformation.
Okay, so let's get into what these sources actually lay out. We should probably start with the history, right?
Yeah,
AI's journey is kind of surprising. Goes back further than you might think.
definitely. Then we can dig into the impact on, the future of work.
Yeah, and then leadership, decision-making, those core ideas. And maybe touch on some key figures.
The people who shaped these concepts. And we have to talk about the challenges too, the big hurdles.
For sure. Okay, so history first. Let's unpack some of that.
Sounds good.
Because you feel like AI just, boom, appeared recently, right?
Uh-huh.
With things like ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But the actual idea, thinking machines, that's centuries old.
It is, though the term itself, artificial intelligence, that's much newer, 1950s.
And your sources mention some real pioneers from back then.
Yeah.
Alan Turing.
Right, often called the father of theoretical computer science and AI. He proposed the Turing test way back in 1950.
That famous test. Can a machine fool you into thinking it's human?
Exactly, and it's kind of wild how close some systems are getting now. Really makes you think about that benchmark.
It does. And then John McCarthy, he's the one who actually coined the term artificial intelligence.
That's the guy. He organized that big Dartmouth summer project in '56, kind of the official kickoff for the field.
And he developed Lisp, that programming language.
Yeah, ancient in computer terms, but believe it or not, still used sometimes in AI research.
Huh? Who else? Marvin Minsky comes up too.
Another giant. MIT AI Lab co-founder worked on how machines might reason his theory of frames. He was aiming for the big prize, artificial general intelligence, AGI.
Machines that can think like humans, basically.
That was the dream. And then you've got futurists like Ray Kurzweil talking about the singularity.
Right, that idea of exponential tech growth, machines surpassing us,
Yeah.
even merging with us eventually.
Yeah, really big, almost sci-fi ideas shaping that early vision.
So they were thinking huge thoughts.
Maybe a little too huge for the technology they actually had back then?
Because the sources mention something called the AI winter.
Exactly. After that first wave of excitement, things really cooled down in the 70s and 80s.
An AI winter. So things just stopped, froze up.
Pretty much. The sources say, the early promises didn't quite deliver, computers weren't powerful enough yet, and critically, the funding dried up.
A reality check.
A big one, after all the initial hype.
Okay, so if it went into hibernation, how did we get, well, here. With AI seemingly everywhere now.
That's the AI renaissance. Started late 90s, early 2000s. It was really a few key things coming together.
Like what?
Well, first, machine learning algorithms got way better. They could learn from data without needing every single rule spelled out.
Right, the systems kind of teach themselves by looking at tons of examples.
Precisely. And they needed fuel for that learning, which was big data.
Suddenly there was just so much data from the internet, digital systems.
Massive amounts, huge variety, coming fast, often messy. Exactly what these new algorithms needed to chew on.
But processing all that takes serious computing power.
And that was the third piece. Computing power exploded. Plus, you had the rise of cloud computing.
Right, so researchers finally had the horsepower to actually train these complex models on all that data.
Bingo. And that brings us more or less up to now, the current age of AI.
Where the sources highlight things like, well, the huge leaps in natural language processing, machines understanding and generating text like ChatGPT, Gemini.
Yeah, and computer vision machines interpreting images, video, plus big strides in robotics, making robots smarter, more autonomous.
It feels less like slow progress and more like a sudden jump.
It really does. And it's clearly not over. The sources suggest more profound changes are still coming.
Which brings us nicely to the impact on us, on society, especially how we work. Your sources really get into the weeds on this.
Yeah, the changes in the job market, but also the deeper sort of philosophical questions for management.
It definitely raises some big ones, like what does work even mean when AI can do tasks humans used to do?
And productivity gains. AI makes things more efficient, right? So who gets the benefit? How should that be shared?
Does it just go to the owners of the tech?
Hmm.
Or is there a broader societal question there? And what's the government's role in all this? Regulation, managing the impact.
And creativity. Does AI limit human creativity, or could it actually inspire it in new ways?
Lots to think about. Okay, specifically for the labor market, the sources talk a lot about automation and job displacement. That's a big fear.
It is. We've seen it in manufacturing for years, but AI is hitting different areas now. Routine tasks, even some white-collar work, data entry. It's blurring lines.
Which naturally leads to worries about unemployment, inequality.
Definitely concerns raised in the material. And the suggested solutions often revolve around, education, retraining, supporting entrepreneurship, safety nets, and developing AI ethically, of course.
But it's not all negative, right?
Yeah.
The sources also talk about new job creation.
Absolutely. The AI industry itself is growing fast. Researchers, data scientists, ethicists, AI product managers.
Sure, jobs building the AI.
Right. But also, AI drives innovation elsewhere. It boosts productivity, which can lead to new roles in healthcare, finance, customer service, transport, education, jobs using AI, or created because of the efficiencies AI brings.
So it's shifting things around,
Right.
which means skill shifts.
Huge shifts. The sources really hammer this. Skills AI can't easily do become premium. Critical thinking, creativity, complex problem solving, being adaptable.
So lifelong learning isn't just a buzzword anymore. It's survival.
Pretty much. Upskilling, reskilling essential. The healthcare example in the sources is good here.
How so?
Well, AI helps analyze scans, right? So you need people who understand healthcare data science, machine learning, ethics around that data.
Okay, technical skills.
It also highlights the need for the human skills AI lacks. Communication, empathy, the doctor's judgment. It's about combining strengths.
Makes sense. The sources also mention the gig economy, AI accelerating that.
Yeah, things like online freelancing platforms. AI helps match projects to skills, automates some admin, makes that model more efficient.
Which offers flexibility, sure, but also raises questions. Fair pay, worker rights, data privacy.
All valid concerns discussed. And as AI becomes part of the workflow, how we interact with it, the human-machine interface, HMI, that becomes really important.
How do humans and machines work together smoothly?
Think manufacturing again. Good HMIs let workers easily program robots, monitor them safely. The sources talk about future trends too, like just talking to machines naturally or using augmented reality.
It really paints a picture of work constantly changing, needing us to constantly adapt.
Totally. And that leads right into leadership and decision-making. AI isn't just a tool there either. It's fundamentally challenging old assumptions.
Yeah, like the nature of authority. If the AI has better data, faster analysis, does the leader become less of the ultimate decider and more like a curator, an interpreter of AI insights?
It's a fascinating question. And what about intuition, that gut feeling leaders rely on?
Does AI kill intuition? Or maybe complement it, give you data to check your gut against?
Could be either or both. The sources dig into how AI actually impacts the process of making decisions. Two main ways.
Okay.
First, augmented decision-making. AI assists, provides insights, runs scenarios, but the human makes the final call, just better informed.
Like the AI-powered customer service example you mentioned.
Exactly. AI handles simple queries, routes complex ones, gives the human agent instant customer history or product recommendations.
So the AI makes the human agent much more effective, faster, more accurate responses.
Right. Better outcomes, reduced costs, improved efficiency. The AI enhances the human.
Okay, that's augmenting. What's the other way?
Automated decision-making, or ADM. This is where the AI makes the decision itself, based on its programming and data.
Like credit scoring.
Perfect example. AI models analyze income, credit history, whatever data they're fed, and approve or deny loans automatically.
Super efficient, consistent, fast, scalable.
All true. But it raises big questions about accountability, transparency. If the AI makes a bad call, who's responsible?
Yeah, and how do you even know why it made that decision sometimes? The black box problem.
Which highlights the ethical side. Potential for bias is a huge concern. If the data used to train the AI is biased...
The AI's decisions will be biased too.
Right. The sources use the example of algorithmic bias in criminal justice. Recidivism risk algorithms trained on historically biased data.
Could lead to unfair predictions. Discriminatory sentencing, denying bail unfairly.
Exactly. Really serious ethical implications.
So how do the sources suggest we deal with that?
Several things. Making sure training data is diverse and representative. Transparency, trying to make AI explainable so we understand why it decides things. Crucially, Human oversight, keeping humans in the loop for critical decisions, and establishing clear ethical frameworks.
It's not just tech, it's policy, ethics, oversight. The sources even mention sci-fi, like Minority Report.
Yeah, as a way to explore these themes, predictive algorithms, bias, privacy, the whole question of being held accountable for something you might do.
So with all this,
Mm.
AI augmenting, AI automating, what kind of leadership does this new era require?
The sources point towards styles that are more collaborative working with AI, not just directing people. Ethical, obviously. Adaptive, because things change so fast. And definitely data-driven, comfortable using the insights AI provides.
Let's revisit that customer service example through a leadership lens.
Yeah.
What does a leader do there?
Well, they need to empower their human agents to work with the AI. Invest in training them on the new tools and the skills needed alongside AI. Foster collaboration between humans and the system. And crucially, prioritize the ethical use of the customer data the AI is using.
So it's a different kind of leadership skill set.
It really is. Which leads to a fundamental question the sources touch on.
Mm-hmm.
With AI getting so capable, do we even need human leaders anymore?
What do the sources say?
Overwhelmingly, yes, because of the human touch.
Meaning
AI, right now at least, lacks genuine empathy. It doesn't understand complex human emotions. It doesn't have that spark of human creativity, emotional intelligence.
if those things are, well, they're essential for effective leadership, aren't they?
Yeah.
Trust, communication, handling tricky situations.
Absolutely. And solving problems that need completely new thinking, not just finding patterns in old data.
The AI in education example again.
Right. AI tutors, adaptive learning, super useful tools. But the sources warn about losing the human connection. Teachers provide emotional support, help kids develop social skills, guide critical thinking. AI can't replace that relationship.
So it's about balance. Use AI for efficiency, personalization.
But make sure humans are still there for the empathy, the judgment, the mentoring, the creative problem solving. It's about combining strengths. AI for data and routine tasks, humans for emotional intelligence, creativity, complex judgment.
Okay. So who are the key people, the thinkers, who helped shape this understanding? The sources mention some architects of the AI age.
Yeah, several key figures. Jeffrey Hinton is one, often called a godfather of deep learning.
His work on neural networks underpins so much of modern AI, right? How it learns from data.
Exactly. Then there's Andrew Ng, big in AI education entrepreneurship. He really pushes for applying AI to solve real problems, create value, but responsibly.
And Fei Lei.
A leader in computer vision. Created the ImageNet dataset, which was huge for training AI to see. Her work shows how AI analyzes visual data for decisions.
Okay.
Stuart Russell.
He's mentioned as a major voice on AI safety, making sure AI is reliable, aligned with human values. Super important for leaders implementing this stuff.
Absolutely. And Daniel Kahneman, the psychologist who won a Nobel in economics.
Yeah, his work on how humans think biases, System 1 versus System 2, thinking it's incredibly relevant.
How so?
It shows our own flaws in judgment, which highlights why AI augmentation can be so valuable, spotting things our biased brains might miss.
But he also emphasizes human judgment for complex stuff, right?
Exactly. It's not about replacing humans, but understanding where AI helps and where human intuition and judgment are still critical.
Understanding these figures gives context. And bringing it back to leadership today, the sources lay out some clear challenges.
Definitely. Adaptability is huge.
Yeah.
Leaders just have to keep learning, keep changing, because AI isn't standing still.
No.
And ethics. Prioritizing fairness, responsibility. Asking the hard questions about how AI is used.
That's critical. And skill development isn't just for the workforce. Leaders need AI literacy too. They need to understand how to work with these systems effectively.
The sources seem to suggest tackling these challenges needs
Well,
everyone involved.
yeah, policymakers, tech developers, business leaders, they all need to collaborate. Think through the ethics, the tech, the societal impact together to get the benefits while managing the risks.
Okay, well, that brings us towards the end of this deep dive into your sources.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. From AI's history, the pioneers, that whole winter and renaissance,
To how it's changing jobs, skills, demanding new kinds of leadership.
and altering decision-making itself, augmenting us, automating things, but always bumping up against the need for that human touch, for ethics.
Yeah, what really stands out from the material is that AI isn't just another piece of tech, it's genuinely transformative. It's changing the structure of work, of leadership.
And the key takeaways seem clear. We need to be adaptable. We need to focus on skills constantly Ethics has to be front and center.
And collaboration is crucial. It's about figuring out how to use AI responsibly, combining its power with our unique human strengths, empathy, creativity, judgment.
So maybe here's a final thought for you, something to chew on based on all this. If AI gets really good at processing data, finding patterns, giving us answers, maybe the most important leadership skill isn't having the answers anymore.
Hmm. What is it then?
Maybe it's having the wisdom to ask AI the right questions in the first place.
Mm.
And then the clarity to interpret what the AI spits out, and crucially, the judgment to know when and how to overlay our own human insight, our values, that goes beyond what the data alone can tell us.